This is really important for you to think about. See, I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona. Just did an amazing hike, amazing climb. And I like this climb because you can see the entire city of Phoenix from the top here. And this is really important for a point I want to make in this video. You have a 360-degree view of this entire city here. It's absolutely marvelous, absolutely beautiful. And here's the reason why this is really important. See, there are three different ways to think about valuing Bitcoin or pricing Bitcoin. The first way is thinking about all the money in the world that's yet to flow into Bitcoin. You know, there's trillions of dollars in stocks, trillions of dollars in bonds, trillions of dollars in real estate, and as people take a 1%, 3%, 5% allocation into Bitcoin, all of this capital is going to be chasing a smaller and smaller portion of the remaining coins on exchanges. So, you know, if there's roughly 1.5, 2 million coins on exchanges today, and let's say 1 in 30 of the millionaires in the world decide, hey, I want 1 Bitcoin, that means that all the Bitcoin are gone. Then you have the billionaires, and you have the companies, corporations, all the people out there in the world. That's the first way to think about it. There's all this money that is going to want to have a relatively modest size allocation to Bitcoin, 1, 5, 10%, and all that money is going to drastically reduce the number of coins on exchanges and take them out, wipe them out, which that will force price up. You know, we'll be talking millions of dollars per Bitcoin, maybe even tens of millions of dollars of Bitcoin just from that alone. Second, though, we have to keep in mind something else. It's not just the amount of money and monetary energy in the world flowing into a perpetually smaller amount of Bitcoin in the future, but number two, it's also about all the debasement that is ahead of us. We are printing so much money, we are borrowing so much money, and all this money has to find a home. And as people in that first step take a higher allocation of Bitcoin, they take more of their monetary energy and plug it into this digital energy network, they're going to realize, oh, wait a second, Gresham's law, all this printed money, all this debasement, we want to funnel into this safe haven asset. We want to funnel into this digital real estate. There's all this real estate out here, analog real estate, Bitcoin's digital real estate. You know, we don't want to have all your political currency units. We want the real land. And that's what's going to happen in that second stage. That as people are taking that higher allocation, they'll have all those printed currency units flow into Bitcoin. And that dwarfs the former numbers. You know, now we're not talking anymore about millions or tens of millions per Bitcoin. We're talking about hundreds of millions or billions per Bitcoin. As an example, let's say that 1 in 30 2 million coins at exchanges, 60 million millionaires in the world, 1 in 30 millionaires buys 1 coin, no more Bitcoin, okay? Then what happens when the United States and China and Japan and the European Union and all the European countries and everywhere else in the world all say, you know, we want an allocation to this. And we're going to print as much political currency as it takes to buy whatever is on the market. Doesn't matter what the price is, we need it. It's a matter of national security. It's a matter of defending our interests. Because if we don't do this, if we don't print as much money as possible to do this now, someone else will do it before us. And that's the second stage. Subsidize all the mining, get as much mining as you can, get as many coins as you can, and print yourselves into oblivion, essentially. This is basically what we are incentivized to do. We see this with Michael Saylor, we see this with many other people. You take the weak asset to buy the strong asset. Real estate investors. They borrow the mortgages, and they go out and they buy a harder asset. Michael Saylor sells his own stock, throws it all in the market to acquire Bitcoin. Raise a bunch of debt, acquire Bitcoin. Governments will do the same thing. They will print as much money as they possibly can in this game of musical chairs as it's a race to the bottom. In the same way, we can think of this from a technological perspective. In the same way that if you're a newspaper company and you realize, oh wait, the internet actually is a big deal, we should take a 5% allocation of our marketing budget away from newspapers and put it into internet and the weird bloggers, then you realize everyone else is going to do that, and so then it becomes a race to the bottom. It becomes a race of who can put their newspaper business, their own business, out of business as fast as possible before the other people put it out of business. And it's going to be the same way with political currencies. It's going to be the same way when we about Bitcoin. So here's the third component, and this is why I wanted to film this video here, in Phoenix overlooking everything. See, with Phoenix, I really like Phoenix. This is my first time here, and what's cool about it is that there are 5 million people in this city. The 360-degree view looks just like this. There's 5 million people here, okay? There's another 1.5 million in another city or two around here, but there's only 7 million people in Arizona or so, okay? So you're literally, right now, looking at 5 out of 7 people that live in the entire state of Arizona right here. Okay? There's, 330 million people in the United States. So that means that 1 out of 66 Americans is right here in this very specific spot. Climbing this mountain, you can just look out, turn your head, and you can see easily well over 1% of the American population. Now, why is that important, and why is that bullish for Bitcoin? The reason it's bullish. If you look a couple miles out, then it's immediately desert for hundreds of miles. And we have turned this barren desert wasteland in just a couple hundred years into this world with ponds and golf courses and casinos and resorts and parks and museums. We have turned barren rock and desert, uninhabitable land into habitable land today, when the vast majority of the last 100 years or so we haven't had the technologies we have now, and in a few decades we'll have technology far more advanced than we could possibly fathom today. And so my point is, the majority of Arizona is yet to become livable land. The majority, we have so much empty desert. It's super easy to justify expanding our civilization into, to justify expanding our society into. And so it's like we can look and marvel at this amazing wonder that Phoenix, Arizona is here. And it's just thinking like, wow, what if in the coming decades and coming centuries we 5x the number of people that can live here, we 10x the number of people here. You think about it, you envision it in the far distant future, beyond my lifetime probably, and perhaps even beyond my children's lifetime. It's like, wow, easily, possibly, hundreds of millions of people could live in the state of Arizona. There's plenty of room. It's just empty desert. And it's really enjoyable living. Even this crowded city, the fifth biggest, largest city in the United States, it's comfortable. It's enjoyable. You get to hike in this beautiful park here of this mountain, and there are other mountains on the horizon, other parks all around. And, despite this massive metropolis of the fifth biggest city in the United States, where there's over 1% of the population, it's still super comfortable. Hey, how are you? I'm doing well. Anyway, so all I have to say is that first, people are going to take an allocation of this thing, and that will send Bitcoin to millions, tens of millions. Second, or perhaps simultaneously, governments will take their allocations. They'll print an endless number of currency units in order to acquire a perpetually small amount of Bitcoins on the market. That sends it to hundreds of millions, if not billions. But this is the real reason to be bullish on Bitcoin. This dwarfs everything. The real thing that is going to make Bitcoin absolutely unbelievably valuable in the far distant future, again talking decades or centuries, is not the fact the governments are printing more numbers and creating more ones and zeros on the screen. And it's not the fact that we've already shifted over, percentage-wise, all the money in the world, except we're creating new stuff. But what if we go from this world where we have 8 billion human beings, only 1 in 16 of which have property rights, into a world where we have hundreds of billions of AI bots producing productivity and producing value and creating innovations and discoveries and medicines unlike anything we can perceive of in the past. What if we have that world? And then beyond that world, what if we 10x the amount of habitable land we have? As humans upgrade, as we have more energy, as we have a better means to channel energy across space and time, we'll be able to create more and more habitable land for more and more human beings, for more and more prosperity, more and more productivity. And because there's only 21 million Bitcoin, that means that all of this, all of Phoenix, and all of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of square miles of potentially habitable land in that theoretical future, all of that could be denominated into Bitcoin. And so when I talk about Bitcoin going to $1 million or $5 million or $100 million, yes, I'm talking in terms of fiat. I'm talking more one of those first two ideas, either of current allocation or future protocol currency debasement. But really, that third thing is so much more exciting to me, and it's so much more optimistic. But unfortunately, in order to get to that third step, most people need to think in terms of fiat, think in terms of numbers for trying to price in Bitcoin. And that's the ultimate point I'm making here. You can't try to describe the future value of Bitcoin in terms of political currencies. You can't do that. You can't describe it in this former technological system. If you're going to think in the far future, if you're going to think about turning this uninhabitable land into that habitable land over there, you have to be thinking in terms of these fundamental principles, away from trying to price it in terms of fiat. So, yeah, I'll continue to talk about Bitcoin and try to communicate it to both yourself and myself and all the people out there yet to learn about this amazing technology in terms of fiat, because That's the way our brains are wired. We're all wired with political currency thinking, with fiat thinking, with late 20th century and early 21st century thinking. And in order for us to have the conviction we need to properly allocate into Bitcoin, for us to have the conviction we need to be thinking properly about the future, we need to keep these things in mind. That even with all of our attempts to describe the potential value of Bitcoin as 100,000 or 100 million or Peter Dunbar's concept of 7 billion or Michael Saylor's concept of 5 million, like we can talk about that all day, and we do talk about it all day, but ultimately it's all a 21st century attempt to explain the 22nd century, the 23rd century, and beyond all of that value. So that's what's really cool about this place, that you get to see all that. Now, here's a problem though. How do we educate more people about this thing? And how do we secure our stack so that in the event that Bitcoin goes up in value dramatically more than we can possibly fathom, how we protect ourselves? Well, for the first point, I'll shout out one of my great sponsors here, Orange Collab. I am wearing their hat, as you can see, as well as their shirt. I got a bunch of their swag recently, and so I'm wearing it today on my hike. So anyway, Orange Collab, what is it? Well, see, one of the things that one of the problems Bitcoiners face is that there's not a lot of people thinking about this. There's not a lot of people thinking in terms of 22nd or 23rd century technology. Most people are stuck in this 21st century mindset, or fiat mindset, political currency mindset, or zero-sum thinking, whatever you want to call it. Most people are still living in the present world, not the future world. And so how do Bitcoiners connect with local people in their areas that also can relate to them on this aspect? And that's where Orange Collab comes in. Orange Collab is a monthly subscription, just a couple dollars, where, well, at least today before inflation gets worse, but purchasing power-wise is just a couple dollars every month, and you sign up and you get to meet lots of Bitcoiners in your local area. I highly recommend it. The reason they're my sponsor is because I really like the product. It's really important that we build a Bitcoin community, and we have people that are talking with each other, debating with each other, and sharing ideas with each other. And in order to do that, I'm hiking with the guy over there right now. He wants to stay anonymous, otherwise I have him in this video, but and with lots of my Bitcoin friends I have personally met on the Orange Collab. If you're going to go to one of these conferences and drop a bunch of money, going to see the speakers and all that, it's like, don't you want to also pay a couple more dollars and meet Bitcoiners outside those events, get to hear about events that you may not hear about otherwise? So anyway, if you want to meet local Bitcoiners, you can go to Orange Collab, sign up there. There are links is wherever, video description, and check them out. And then to the second point, the second question I asked earlier, how are you going to protect your wealth? All this digital real estate, these stats you own, how are you going to protect them in the future when Bitcoin has that first stage where all the millionaires decide, I want Bitcoin and I want it now? What about in that second stage where government says, we're going to print a heck of a lot of currency, heck of a lot of political currency units, and buy all the Bitcoin right now? How do you protect about those massive green candles, dramatic green candles to the upside? Okay, you have to prepare your self-custody before we have those candles. You have to prepare your mentality, you have to prepare your estate plan, and you have to prepare your custody solutions before that moment. Because that moment is coming, and it's probably many years away, but when it comes, the relative supply between people that understand Bitcoin, people that talk Bitcoin, people that understand the feedback loops and the second order effects of Bitcoin is going to be dramatically smaller than the people that will have demand for that kind of intelligence, which again is partly why Orange Pill app helps with that. You get to talk to them in person, but then of course I'm referring to the potential need of a multi-sig cloud custody solution, and that's where the Bitcoin Advisor comes in. I work for the Bitcoin Advisor, where I help people. My job, I love my job, because my job is literally helping people take their coins off of exchanges and putting them in long-term custody solutions for them and for future generations. And so, of course, there is no self-custody solution, there are only trade-offs, but I believe that for many people, as we get closer and closer to these massive candles upwards into the millions, tens of millions, or hundreds of millions of dollars per Bitcoin, these people are going to want to have a diversification into a multi-sig solution where they have all the trade-offs, the benefits and the cons of that solution. So if you want to check that out, if you want to learn how to set up a multi-sig vault, if you want a Bitcoin estate plan, so that if you get hit by dust, or if you forget your keys, or if something else unfavorable happens to you, you can check out the link in the description. I'd be happy to do a free call with you. We can talk about where you are in your Bitcoin journey, where you want to go, and try to figure out the best solution for you, whether that's worth your company or not. So again, that's the Bitcoin Advisor. You can check that out, link in the description. And then again, shout out Orange Pill app. Ultimately, I believe in these companies. I believe in the work that I do, and I believe in these videos because that's what it's all about. It's about having more prosperity in the future, more ability for more humans to have more prosperous lives than we can possibly imagine. Down here below the mountain, there's some mansions down there. They're absolutely amazing. They're probably $10 million plus per mansion. But here's the thing. Even the richest people alive today, even Michael Saylor, who's probably going to be one of the richest people in the world and probably not that long, even them, they can't buy the prosperity of the 22nd and 23rd centuries because those technologies that bring that prosperity have not been invented yet. And to me, that's why I'm on this mission. That's why I shout at these companies. That's why I make these videos, because I want the best possible future. And so to me, that's advancing technologies that bring that prosperity. That's about advancing Bitcoin to place in those technologies into the future as a store value, unit of exchange, and unit of account. It's about focusing, not just the math, not just the numbers, not just the clickbait, and not just the sponsors and companies, but focus on the larger principle of being able to accept these technologies and not lose our heart and soul in the process. So, yeah, I'm bullish.